In the dead of night, while wounded soldiers lay dying in filth and agony, a single light moved through the darkness. A woman, defying every expectation of her era, walked mile after mile of hospital corridors, checking on men that society had left to rot. They called her the Lady with the Lamp. Her name was Florence Nightingale, and she would revolutionize medicine forever. Florence was born in 1820 to a wealthy British family who expected one thing from her: to marry well and host dinner parties. But from childhood, Florence felt a calling she couldn't ignore. At 17, she believed God spoke to her directly, telling her she had a mission. The problem was, she had no idea what it was. For years, she suffered in silence, trapped between her family's expectations and an unnamed purpose burning inside her. Her mother was horrified when Florence showed interest in nursing. In Victorian England, nurses were considered barely above servants, often drunk, uneducated women of questionable morals. For a woman of Florence's status to pursue nursing was social suicide. But Florence didn't care about society. She cared about something deeper. She secretly studied hospital reports and public health documents. She visited hospitals across Europe, taking notes, learning everything she could. Her family fought her every step of the way. Her mother had screaming fits. Her sister accused her of destroying the family. Florence fell into deep depressions, once writing that she felt like she was slowly bleeding to death. Then, at 33 years old, she finally broke free. She took a position running a small hospital in London, and everything changed. 1 year later, in 1854, Britain went to war with Russia in Crimea. Reports came back that were shocking, even by the brutal standards of the time. British soldiers weren't dying from enemy fire. They were dying from cholera, typhus, and dysentery. The military hospitals were death traps. Men lay in their own waste, covered in lice, drinking contaminated water. The death rate was catastrophic. The Secretary of War, who happened to be Florence's friend, made an unprecedented decision. He asked her to lead a team of nurses to Crimea. No women had ever held such a position in military history. Florence arrived at the Scuttery Hospital in Turkey and found hell on earth. 4 miles of beds packed with dying men. Sewage flowing beneath the building. Rats everywhere. No clean linens, no soap, barely any medical supplies. The doctors, proud military men, wanted nothing to do with this woman and her nurses. They refused her help outright. So Florence waited. She knew that pride and prejudice couldn't hold forever against the tide of wounded men. When a massive wave of casualties arrived and the doctors became overwhelmed, they finally, reluctantly, allowed her to assist. And Florence transformed everything. She didn't just nurse the wounded. She attacked the system itself. She used her own money and her family's connections to purchase supplies. She set up kitchens to provide nutritious food. She established laundries for clean linens. She wrote letters home for soldiers who couldn't write. She created reading rooms to lift their spirits. And every night, she walked the wards with her lamp, covering 4 miles of beds, checking on each man, offering comfort to those who would not see the morning. The soldiers worshipped her. They kissed her shadow as she passed. But here's what made Florence truly revolutionary. She didn't just care, she counted. Florence was a mathematical genius, one of the first people to use statistical analysis to prove public health concepts. She gathered data obsessively and discovered something stunning. Soldiers weren't dying primarily from their wounds. They were dying from the unsanitary conditions. Poor ventilation, contaminated water, and overcrowding killed 10 times more men than Russian bullets ever did. When she returned to England as a national hero, she didn't rest on her fame. She used it as a weapon. She compiled her evidence into groundbreaking reports with innovative visual charts she invented herself. Circular diagrams that made death tolls impossible to ignore. She presented her findings to Queen Victoria. She lobbied Parliament. She demanded reform, and she got it. Hospital design changed. Sanitation standards were implemented.
Nursing became a respected profession. Florence established the first professional nursing school, setting standards still used today.
But victory came at a cost. Florence had contracted a debilitating illness in Crimea, possibly chronic brucellosis, that left her bedridden for much of her remaining 50 years. She conducted most of her reform work from her bedroom, writing over 13,000 letters and numerous books and reports, meeting with officials and reformers who came to seek her counsel. She became the first woman awarded the Order of Merit by a British monarch. She lived to be 90 years old, passing away in 1910. Here's what strikes me about Florence Nightingale. Everyone remembers the lamp, the angel of mercy, gliding through the darkness. But that image, while beautiful, misses the point. Florence wasn't just compassionate. She was relentless. She fought her family for over a decade. She battled military bureaucracy. She used mathematics as a revolutionary tool. She worked until her body gave out, and then she worked from her bed for another half-century. Florence Nightingale didn't just comfort the dying. She changed the world so that fewer people had to die in the first place. She proved that one person, armed with purpose, data, and unstoppable determination, could take on entire systems and win. So the next time you're in a clean hospital, cared for by trained nurses, remember the woman who made it possible. Remember that she was told no by everyone she loved. Remember that she waited until she was 33 to begin her real work. Remember that our greatest tools weren't bandages and medicine, but charts and statistics and an absolutely unbreakable will. Florence Nightingale carried a lamp through the darkness, but the real light she carried was the belief that things didn't have to be the way they were, that suffering could be measured, understood, and prevented, that one person's refusal to accept the unacceptable could echo through centuries. That's a light worth carrying.